In contrast to the view of Levi Haugbin was to adopt a somehow ambivalent approach to dialectical material. Um, which he pointed out was a term introduced by Joseph Dietisgen and not by Marx or Engels. Like Bernal, Needham, Levy, and others, Hogben was enormously impressed by the ideas of the 1931 delegation of Soviet scientists led by Bukharin, who were to arrive unexpectedly at the Second International Congress of the History of Science and Technology in 1931. In response, Hugben wrote a lengthy and complex analysis of dialectical materialism and its overlap with a critical mechanism published under the under the title Contemporary Philosophy in Soviet Russia in Psychic and 1932. No less a figure than Needham thought it worth citing as one of the most important discussions of the subject. A central aspect of the paper was his criticism of Dietzgen for smoothing idealism back into materialism and the alienation of Marxism from natural science. Hochben strongly supported Bukharin's basic position in his paper at the 1931 Congress and emphasized the importance of dialectical materialism, overlapping with the notion of holism and emergent evolution in describing different levels of complexity phenomena. Of complexity of phenomena with laws of their own. Yet for Hugden, any sense of idealism or mysticism within dialectical materialism, particularly for the Etzgen variety, was to be rejected. Although Hugden was to distance himself formally from dialectical materialism as a philosophy, he continued to employ dialectical insight, contradiction, integrative levels, qualitative transformation, shorn of the more Hegelian vocabulary throughout his work. Hence, his seeming departure from Marxian orthodoxy in this respect was more a matter of form than substance. and was not of the sort to create any real barriers between him and the other Marxian scientists in Britain with whom he remained closely associated. Indeed, Needham saw Hobsbawm's argument in his psych, psych, psych article as crucial. English scholars, he wrote, owe a debt to Lancelot Hobsbawm, who was one of the first about this time to try to translate dialectical materialism more or less successfully in English idiom. For Needham, what was most important was Hobsbawm's declaration that dialectical materialism was similar to the tenets of emergent evolution in recognizing the importance of complexity and integrative levels. Despite his commitment to simply mechanistic, if critical, materialism, um, Hogben was a radical humanist in orientation, deeply attracted to the vision of Morris. He argued he argued that improvements in science had led to the impossibility of what he called the bioaesthetical design of human life. This view was distinguished from a back to nature philosophy, distinguished from back to nature philosophy and associated with such early proponents of the human betterment of nature as the 17th century Baconian John Evelyn, author of Silva and Fumifugion, advocating for the social use of science so as to harmonize human life with the natural landscape, was Hogan declared at least rational rational as at aiming at housing everybody in skyscraper tenement with ferro concrete scenario. He proposed a biologically planned ecology full of human satisfaction. A cooperative commonwealth could efface the skeleton green of silk stocking and sew up advertisements along our boulevards by vegetation flowing throughout the seasons, turning to a utopian and ecological strand of socialism. He declared free trade except the urban squalor of a coal economy as the price for its own definition of prosperity. Today's scientific knowledge offers us possibility of a new plan of social living more akin to the utopia of William Morris or Edward Carpenter. In presenting this vision, Hogben insisted it is important to emphasize that the distribution of purchasing power to increase the volume of effective demand is essentially different from the view held by the pioneers of socialism 50 or 100 years ago. It would have been regarded by them as a capitulation to the prevailing doctrine of laissez-faire. against which they revolted. Men like Owen and Maurice were far less taken in by the glamour of capitalism than we are. They were not content to criticize it because it distributed its products unjustly or because it was incapable of producing a large quantity of goods for a planet economy could deliver. They also, and more especially, attacked it because it was not producing the kind of goods which are good for people to want and to strive. They were not hypnotized by the liberal delusion that things people have been educated to demand by capitalist advertisement are necessarily the things they need most. Today, we are apt to dismiss the lament on the ugliness which capitalist enterprise was bequeathed bequeathed us. I don't know what this word means. Bequeathed us as a mere aestheticism with no significance for a realistic political program. What is called realism implied a servile acceptance of the three cardinal errors of capitalist ideology. The first is the assumption that the greatest good of the greatest number is achieved by producing the greatest number of sellable goods and ensuring that the greatest number of people can take the choice. The second is that the larger community is a necessary condition of the high productive capacity. The third is that peace between nations can only be ensured by a maximum division of labor with free trade. I believe that each of these postulates is sociological false. Okay, good point.